Well, welcome to the 700 Club. While Republicans are moving ahead on the tax bill that hopes to strengthen the economy, Democrats are on the defensive. It's because of the news that Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign paid for that infamous dossier on Donald Trump. And it had information, guess what, from Russia.
Well, during this political firestorm, Republicans are working out some key issues on their tax bill, including how much Americans can save tax-free for retirement. Heather Sells has the story.
Shockwaves are rolling in Washington over news that the Clinton campaign and the Democratic Party funded research for the infamous dossier. Its allegations tied Donald Trump to Russia and dominated much of the 2016 campaign cycle. Now the president is pouncing on news that the Democrats paid for it.
Hillary Clinton always denied it. The Democrats always denied it. And now only because it's going to come out in a court case, they said, yes, they did it. They admitted it. And they're embarrassed by it.
The Washington Post broke the story, and other reporters, including two from the New York Times, are now saying that Clinton campaign officials lied to them about the campaign's role in funding it. The dossier has been part of the Russia investigation into last year's presidential campaign, and this latest news could prove to be a turning point. Democrats have tried to brush it aside just as the White House ramps up its campaign to pass tax reform. The president says Congress is moving ahead quickly.
They're passing this bill along very rapidly. We have to get tax cuts and just pass it along.
What's not clear, just where Republicans will land on what to do with the idea of eliminating the deduction for state and local taxes, and on the tax-free limit that people can contribute to their 401k retirement accounts. Top Republicans writing the plan have said there could be limits. The president has tweeted no changes, but Wednesday he hinted otherwise.
Well, maybe it is, and maybe we'll use it as negotiating, but I trust me.
Watch for a critical House budget vote today. It could set the rules for the tax bill and clear the way for Republicans to approve it without any votes from Democrats. Heather Sells, CBN News.
That's a major issue. You know, the Republicans have to do this, but it looks like they're coming together. The party is coming together. They realize that this is vital, and they're going to lay aside their concerns. There are two issues that we have to remember. The 401k and that whole idea of the IRA is a major, major thing for building up an estate tax-free while you're working so that you'll have something to carry you over into retirement. It is a major thing. It has been extremely popular. And I think for Congress to start mucking around the edges of that would be a big mistake. As far as the deduction, why should the rest of us subsidize New York and California? There's no reason. These high tax states, we subsidize them, and then the people have a deduction because they're paying these high taxes. There's no reason. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. And I'm sure some of the members of the Republican Party from California and New York are going to scream bloody murder. But that is an area that, without question, they ought to go. As far as getting that deduction for 401k taken away, that would be a tragedy, and that affects small earners all across the nation. It is a major private retirement program that should not be touched. So the one touch it, the other don't touch it. Well, in other news, Vice President Pence has a message of hope for persecuted Christians in the Middle East. John Jessup has that.
Thanks, Pat. Vice President Mike Pence said Christianity is under unprecedented assault in the land where the faith began. And as he delivered the keynote address at the In Defense of Christians annual summit here in Washington, D.C. yesterday, he added that the Trump administration is working tirelessly to help the persecuted church. And he said he still has faith God is with his people.
Under the leadership of President Donald Trump, I can assure you, the United States of America will always stand with those who suffer for their faith, and we will always support them in their hour of need, because I'm a believer. And I believe that he who said that when you pass through the waters, I will be with you, that he who said, I will never leave you or forsake you, never will.
Pence also announced the Trump administration will work directly with faith-based organizations to help persecuted communities. Well, Kurds in Iraq said they came under attack again today by Iraqi forces and Islamic militias supported by Iran. As Chris Mitchell reports, the Kurds are fighting not only for a military battle for survival, they're also concerned about being abandoned by their allies.
The military campaign in western Iraq follows the loss of the strategic oil-rich province of Kirkuk just days ago. That struck a severe economic blow to the Kurds.
It has inestimable impact in economic terms. That is to say that around 50% of the oil production, the oil capacity, that's all now gone.
The Kurds are also facing united opposition by their neighbors. Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi met with Turkish President Recep Erdogan. They discussed an oil pipeline that would bypass Kurdistan. This move would further the economic stranglehold on the Kurds. Then al-Abadi flew to Iran, where he received a state welcome. Iran Shiite militias are deeply involved in the military campaign against the Kurds. These militias stand accused by the Kurds of using U.S. weapons, like this M1 Abrams tank, in their military campaign. In light of these military battles and diplomatic isolation, many Kurds feel abandoned by the West.
America and Europe were very disloyal towards the Kurds because they made the Kurds fight ISIS instead of fighting themselves. They turned their back on us. We lost all our faith in the United States, in Europe, and everyone.
Peter Galbraith told CBN News after the Kurdish referendum for independence, the U.S. is backing the wrong side.
The Iranians want Kurdistan to be under the control of Baghdad because they control Baghdad.
Since the referendum, U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson has been walking a diplomatic tightrope between two friends.
I think if both parties commit themselves to a unified Iraq, to the Iraqi Constitution, I think all differences can be addressed.
But some believe it's time for the U.S. to make a choice. In an op-ed, Senator John McCain wrote, if the United States is forced to choose between Iranian-backed militias and our long-standing Kurdish partners, I choose the Kurds. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thanks, Chris. And Pat, I know you've been supportive of the Kurds for quite some time.
The Kurds are wonderful people, and that little enclave that they have established around Erbil is a model of a democratic state. They are our friends. They're our allies. Their Peshmerga fighters have been beside us in every military engagement, and they have been key in the fight against ISIS. And for us to just walk away and act like we're not going to take sides with that, that's nonsense. These are our dear friends, and it's time the U.S. get on board. And I think somehow, I don't believe this has been brought clearly to the fore so that President Trump can understand what he's dealing with. But we do not wish to abandon our allies. The Israelis are our dear friends. The Kurds are our dear friends. There aren't many in the Middle East that are, and certainly the Iranians are not, and that government of Iraq is a joke. And to talk about the integrity of Iraq is nonsense. Iraq is a creature of the great powers, along with probably Winston Churchill and the Brits. It used to be Mesopotamia. I mean, so it's Iraq. I mean, it is a creation of the Western powers. It has been cobbled together, and there's no way it's going to hold together because they have too many disparate people. And I don't know what it is with Secretary Tillerson, who keeps saying these things that are not accurate. He said, well, we're going to fight for the integrity of Iraq. Who cares? They've got the Sunnis, they've got the Shias, they've got the Iranians, they've got various factions, and that country will be split apart regardless. But I think the Kurds deserve their own state, and I think the United States has got to get behind them. And I just don't understand why the leadership in Washington is saying we're going to be neutral. You can't be neutral when they're using American military equipment to fight the Kurds, our dear friends. John.
Pat, Puerto Rico remains a virtual disaster area 1 month after Hurricane Maria ravaged the island. CBN's Eric Rosales brings us this look at the destruction there and what churches are doing to help.
We are in the city of Manatí, about an hour north of San Juan, and this is an area where the eye of the storm made its way through, and you can see power lines are still down, and even power lines are being held up by trees. This entire area is without power, just like much of the island. More than 80%, some 3.5 million homes are still in the dark more than a month after Hurricane Maria. Puerto Ricans are desperate, some turning to Facebook to get the word out that they need help. Such was the case of this man who said he and his community needed food and water. He wrote in the street SOS. Agua, meaning water, and comida, meaning food. Members of San Juan's Connected Life Church answered his cry for help.
So we're housing missionaries from Chicago. They came over here to help our people from Puerto Rico, give them water, food, and one of the missionaries' wives saw Facebook Live, and we made it our mission to find them.
But getting to the man about 90 minutes south of the city proved difficult. Snapped power lines and debris still litter the streets.
We knew that the government haven't reached them. So it's the work of the church to help everyone in need.
In the end, church members reached him with groceries and water. Church members added to his distress call, Llegamos, which means we made it. While churches are being the hands and feet of Jesus, some places of worship need help themselves.
They used to have a second story, so the second story just fell down. The offices just fell down.
Pastor Font leads Fountain of Living Water Church, one of the island's largest. You can tell that there has been water inside here. Officials tell me that it had about 7 feet of water and many of the tiles were just ripped off the roof. The entire second floor came down. This church seats about 5,000 members. In all, about 10,000 members here in Puerto Rico attend this church. What can we as Christians do for you?
Well, just pray. First of all, pray. Do not forget about Puerto Rico. This is going to take our island itself. It's going to take a little bit longer than a couple of months.
Pastor Font tells CBN News it will take time, but he plans to rebuild. He and others are just thankful that a $300 million electrical contract was recently signed by Whitefish Energy to get power back onto the island. Puerto Ricans say once the power comes back, life will get back to normal quicker. Eric Rosales, CBN News.
Pat, so much destruction, so much more work left to do.
It's unbelievable, the devastation. That country was already, or that state was already in bankruptcy. It owed billions of dollars in debt, not able to meet its obligations. And now they face this tragedy. Well, Operation Blessing is there. And here's what we're doing. We're putting in reverse osmosis. We're putting in water desalinization units. We have chlorine generators and equipment generators. Those generators are turning out thousands of gallons of chlorine, which in turn purify the water. So the great need is for drinking water, and we're supplying drinking water. We also bring food and other aid, including just cash, for these churches down there. So if you want to participate in doing something for Puerto Rico, you can dial 1-800-700-7000. It's Operation Blessing, Disaster Relief Fund, and we're not going anywhere. Operation Blessing is still there, and we want to help those people because they are worthy of our help. And we are helping people all over the world, but we're especially in Texas and in Florida, where these disasters have hit. And those people need our hand, and we're giving it to them as much as we can. So again, the number's there for you, so participate and let's do what we can. And it is so desperately needed and so gratefully appreciated. The mayor of San Juan is a great fan of Operation Blessing. She just thinks it's wonderful that we're down there helping those people.